Okay, so recently I heard the best way to get your point across is to tell a story. So I'm going to tell you guys a story, and I hope you find it interesting and informative. Once upon a time, there was a young, active senior couple. We will call them Mr. and Mrs. Jones. They decided they wanted to downsize and invest some money in an apartment building. They were getting ready to retire, and they wanted to ensure they would have some residual income so that they could do some traveling. They were referred to me by a BNI member. We put their house on the market, and in an open house, a young couple came in. I'll call them Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They loved the house, and they said it would be perfect to raise their family, but they didn't know if they could afford it. So I asked them to get pre-approved with our mortgage lender, Vishal. They met with Vishal, and he said, "Dear, here's what you need to do, and I'll put you on your way," and they were able to buy the house. Meanwhile, Mr. and Mrs. Jones found the perfect condo by the beach. Mrs. Jones said, "If I'm going to live by the beach, I need to lose weight and take better care of my skin." So I introduced them to Debbie, our Arbonne girl, and she put her on track for losing her weight. While making the move, her husband threw out his back and was in need of a good chiropractor. So I introduced them to Derek Taylor. After Mr. and Mrs. Jones purchased their condo, they had enough money to invest in a multi-unit apartment building in another area, which of course Lynn, who's not here, helped them find. As landlords, they needed a good property management company, so I introduced them to Christy Slatcher so they could travel and not have to worry about their property. Christy, in return, referred them to Eileen when they had to evict a tenant. They lost one case and hired Jeff to appeal, and of course he won. Back to Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who bought the Jones house. They needed more insurance and better coverage, so I had them speak with Donald. The house was also needed an update on the kitchen and bathroom, which gave me the opportunity to introduce them to John Felix. The house was older, and they wanted to make their house a smart home, so I introduced them to Sean, who turned their old house. They had cameras everywhere, and they turned on lights when they weren't home. The refrigeration worked, everything, air conditioning, heating, thanks to Sean. Since the family had two small children, I referred them to Jonathan Ford so he could keep them on track and help them save money so they could invest in more property and also pay for their kids' college. This family finally needed life insurance to protect their family in case anything happened to them, and that gave me the opportunity to introduce Michelle Fideli. By this time, Mrs. Smith was so stressed and it was taking a toll on her family, I introduced her to Ame, who could help her get back on track and realize her true calling. So after several sessions, my Mrs. Smith found out exactly what she wanted to do. She was like a new person, and she would do that what she always wanted to do, and that was to open her own business. I gave her an introduction to Ryan, who would help her with her branding and make a great name for her business. And of course, she needed a bookkeeper to keep her books straight, so I introduced her to Susan. This is short and simple, but I think it helps get the picture of networking. It didn't stop here, because later they would need some of these other people over and over again, and in turn would refer them to their friends. So this is my story about networking in real estate. Hope you enjoyed it. As we add more people to our BNI group, you can see how easy it is to refer to each other. And I still have time left. I was afraid of that, but I wanted to tell my story, how I use BNI, and that's how I get all the referrals, because I have that referral mindset, and when I hear something that somebody needs in here, it just happens, and I love it. If you have any questions about real estate, I'm changing companies. I went to West Shores as of this morning, and I'm excited about that. It's kind of related to BNI. The guy I met with, the office manager, his wife is BNI member with Hermosa Beach. Vance is his name, Mizzy. His wife is BNI, and then of course they have Eileen as their counsel, and another title girl, Debbie Rodriguez, is in another BNI group. So that was a lot of conversation was centered around BNI, just doing that. So, and I had no idea that it was that, that was that involved with BNI. But that was a good thing. So I was going to wait and I was going to interview with other companies, but I said, I think I just feel like this is the place to be. So I signed on the dotted line. So I'm really excited about that. I'll have to get new cards and change everything, but I don't think it really matters that much where I work.
Does that affect any current listings or anything?
I have two, glad you asked. I have two in escrow right now. One's supposed to close by Friday, another one is closing the 20th of October. And this morning, I put one in escrow. Well, I was representing the buyer, it went into escrow today. So, but I'm still with Vision and not the new company, so I'll see how that works out. It just stays with the same company till it's through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because Vision, Teresa's still going to be Vision Realty. She's just not going to have an office and people. Actually, Palm Realty is going to take over her office, I think. So, yeah.
So I hear a lot of people talking about recession and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Are you seeing more people trying to sell their house thinking values are going to be dropping in the future, or is it just?
My business is booming right now. It's just different. And it has nothing to do with any one thing. Like today, this afternoon at 3 o'clock, I have a listing appointment with a senior that's moving his family. They live in Colorado, and they want to move him back there because he's not well enough to be alone. So I'm going to be selling his place, hopefully. And, this other guy, when I opened escrow today, is an investor. And we just made a deal. We broke the offer, and it was listed at 1.299, and we ended up getting the property for 1.175. So that was good. Like I said, business is good right now. So I don't want anything to change. Okay.
Well, cheers to your new